Chapter 1346. Old man, the battle between you and me has just begun. Lu Ming's voice came out of the nine dragons' mouth. Then, a thunder cauldron appeared and rapidly grew in size, smashing toward the red-robed elder. Roar! The nine dragons twisted their bodies, and the chaotic will spread out. They used the suppressing hell heaven skill, and the nine dragon claws grabbed toward the red-robed elder. At the same time, Ming Lian's second body also moved. He took a step forward, and endless inscriptions appeared in the void. More than a dozen large formations appeared at the same time, and more than 100 huge chains were formed, wrapping around the red-robed elder. Break! The red-robed elder struck out with his palm, and sent the thunder cauldron flying. At the same time, he slashed out with his golden battle sword, and broke the 100 chains. But then the nine dragons attacked. The nine dragon claws were filled with chaotic light, and crushed the space. The red-robed elder was shocked by their power. Whoosh! Whoosh! Sword chi whistled and mysterious runes appeared on the body of Ming Lian's second body, forming a terrifying killing formation. The second body flicked out 9 rays of sword chi. Each ray of sword chi was so powerful that the red-robed elder was terrified. Lu Ming's main body and second body had the same consciousness and worked together seamlessly. The red-robed elder's pupils contracted. He controlled the emperor's spiritual weapon and slashed out dozens of rays of sword chi, covering his body. Although the emperor's spiritual weapon was powerful, its power was greatly reduced when it slashed out dozens of rays of sword chi. Boom! The nine dragons' claws slashed down and destroyed more than a dozen rays of sword chi. On the other side, the sword chi slashed out by the second body also collided with more than a dozen rays of sword chi and dissipated. But as soon as the sword chi dissipated, large formations appeared in the sky. This time, there were large formations to trap the enemy, and also large formations to attack. The dense light flooded toward the red-robed elder. The red-robed elder could only fight back. For a moment, the red-robed elder was completely passive. Lu Ming's main body and second body were equivalent to the peak of the second-layer martial royal realm, which was the same as the red-robed elder. But when the main body and second body worked together, it was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. The combination of the two of them, one in the martial Tao, and the other in the Tao of inscription, was flawless. Various techniques to trap and attack the enemy were like a storm that poured down towards the enemy, causing the enemy to have no chance to catch their breath at all. Even though the red-robed elder was controlling the emperor-rank spirit weapon, he was unable to form an effective counterattack. Under Lu Ming's storm-like attacks, he could only protect himself. This caused many spectators to be shocked. The two Lu Mings teaming up were able to suppress a second-layer martial dominator realm expert with a martial dominator weapon. On the other side, Tu Qian did not care about his own life. He launched a crazy attack and entangled De. At this time, Xia Zhuyang's injuries were almost healed. He joined the battle group and attacked De together with Tu Qian. The battle situation fell into a state of anxiety for a moment. The two sides fought fiercely, and for a moment, it was hard to tell which side would win. Just as Lu Ming and the red-robed old man were engaged in a fierce battle, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind Lu Ming's main body. Then, a black sword radiance broke the space and suddenly appeared behind 9 dragons. The sword pierced toward 9 dragons. This was very sudden. When the sword radiance came, there was almost no fluctuation. Its speed was shockingly fast. 9 dragons wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Puff! The black sword radiance pierced 9 dragons' body. The terrifying sword chi surged wantonly. At the same time, a figure wrapped in a black robe appeared. This person was thin and pale. His face was ferocious. Die Lu Ming! Die! How dare you kill my son Mingzi? Go to hell! This person roared with a ferocious face. Bang! The 9 dragons' bodies began to crumble. But before the black-robed man could rejoice, a steel appeared. An aura stronger than the 9 dragons' bloodline burst out. The suppressing prison steel's bloodline. Boom! The suppressing prison steel's bloodline shook and hit the black-robed man. At the critical moment, the black-robed man blocked with the black sword in his hand. But his body was still shaken. He was sent flying and vomited blood. First Emperor of the Netherworld, you are courting death. Lu Ming's voice was filled with killing intent from the suppressing prison steel's bloodline. This black-robed man was the first Emperor of the Netherworld. He was very powerful and had reached LV2 Martial Royal Realm. However, he was only in the early stage of LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Moreover, he did not have a Martial Royal spiritual weapon. Lu Ming was not worried. Swoosh! At this moment, the red-robed elder finally seized the opportunity and slashed out with his sword. The sword chi hit the bottom of the suppressing prison steel's bloodline. That was where the suppressing prison steel's bloodline was. It was indestructible. Clang! The suppressing prison steel's bloodline shook. With the help of the red-robed elder's strength, it flew far away in the direction of the first Emperor of the Netherworld. The first Emperor of the Netherworld was shocked and wanted to escape. However, a large array suddenly appeared in the void in front of him. Hundreds of chains wrapped around him. Ming Lian's second body had attacked. Break! The first Emperor of the Netherworld shouted. He slashed out with his black sword and tried to break the chains. However, his cultivation level was much lower than that of the red-robed elder. Moreover, he did not have a martial royal spiritual weapon. When he slashed out with his sword, he only managed to break a few chains. More chains wrapped around him. The suppressing prison steel's bloodline had already reached him. It was filled with chaotic will and suppressed the first Emperor of the Netherworld. How dare you be distracted? I can kill one of you. Kill! On the other side, the red-robed elder was overjoyed. His eyes shone with a ferocious light. The sword chi in his sword surged, and he attacked Ming Lian's second body. In his opinion, Lu Ming's main body was stupid to kill the first Emperor of the Netherworld. In this way, he could kill the second body first. As long as he killed one, the other one would not be a threat. The terrifying sword radiance slashed at the second body. However, the second body's expression was calm as it continued to retreat. As it did, numerous spell formations began to appear around it. Break! 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 The red-robed elder slashed out with his sword and broke the large arrays. Then the second body continued to attack. The killing array on the second body shone even brighter. Sword chi shot out, but they were all slashed apart by the red-robed elder's sword. The red-robed elder quickly approached Lu Ming's second body. At this moment, Ming Lian's second body's glabella shone. Two sword radiances suddenly appeared and attacked the red-robed elder. They were extremely fast. Moreover, the cry of a phoenix could be heard from the two sword radiances. Oh no! The red-robed elder was shocked. The two sword radiances gave him a sense of danger. He had goosebumps all over his body. At this critical moment, he could not care less about killing Lu Ming's second body. He used his sword to defend himself and slashed at the two sword radiances. Clang! Clang! Sparks flew. The two sword radiances were sent flying by the red-robed elder. However, his arms were slightly numb. What a powerful force! The red-robed elder was shocked. When he saw the two sword radiances, his eyes narrowed. They were two small swords. They were about the length of a palm and looked like two feathers. He could vaguely hear the cry of a phoenix. Chapter 1347. Back then, Lu Ming had followed the ancient desolate city to an island in the heaven realm for the first time. Lu Ming had obtained 5 phoenix feathers. After that, when Ming Lian's second body entered the sacred mansion secret realm to receive the inheritance of the heavenly profound saint, Lu Ming had given Ming Lian's second body some things related to the path of inscription, including most of the refining materials. Over the years, as Ming Lian's second body's cultivation increased, he had refined the 5 phoenix feathers into 5 flying swords. Lu Ming called them the Phoenix Feather Flying Swords. The Phoenix Feather Flying Swords were extremely sharp and indestructible. They were shockingly powerful. Just now, Ming Lian's second body had used 2 of them, forcing the red-robed elder to defend himself. On the other side, a scream was heard. The first emperor of the underworld was no match for Lu Ming. Under the suppression of the prison-suppressing steel, the first emperor of the underworld's body cracked and blood spurted out. Boom! The prison-suppressing steel suppressed the first emperor of the underworld's body for the second time. The first emperor of the underworld's body was torn apart and his spiritual spirit exploded. He was the strongest ruler in Nanming, and he became the first ruler to be killed after the war began. And the one who killed him was Lu Ming. In the Holy City, countless martial artists who saw this scene couldn't help but gasp. The first emperor of the underworld of the southern underworld was definitely an invincible figure in the past. With a stomp of his foot, not only the southern underworld, but the entire divine region would be shaken. In the past, such a character was like a legend that weighed down on the hearts of countless cultivators. Whenever someone mentioned him, they would tremble in fear. However, such a matchless figure died just like that, killed by an even more powerful expert. Buzz! After killing the first emperor of the underworld, the prison-suppressing steel's bloodline vibrated and suppressed the red-robed elder. Damn it! The red-robed elder roared in his heart. He slashed his sword chi at the second body. But the second body cultivated the path of inscription and had many tricks up his sleeves. All kinds of arrays appeared, some to trap the enemy, some to harass the enemy, some to defend, and some to attack. At the same time, the killing arrays on the second body and the two phoenix feather flying swords were extremely powerful. The red-robed elder did not dare to be careless. Although he forced the second body to retreat, he could not do anything to it. Boom! The prison-suppressing steel's bloodline arrived and pressed down on the red-robed elder. Above it, the chaotic will pressed down and the space collapsed, making it difficult for the red-robed elder to breathe. Clang! Strong energy poured into the third bloodline. The hell-suppressing steel executed the hell-suppressing heavenly art and launched a strong attack at the red-robed old man, suppressing him. At the same time, the second body shouted, and the two phoenix feather flying swords flew toward the red-robed old man. As for the second body, the runes on its body were densely packed, forming a terrifying killing formation with boundless killing intent. The second body was the core of the killing formation. Boundless sword chi surged and gathered into one. The second body turned into a sword chi and attacked the second body. Lu Ming launched a strong attack at the red-robed old man. Emperor Sword, sword destroying the firmament. The red-robed old man circulated his quintessence crazily and slashed out twice. Two sword chi as big as mountains slashed toward the main body and the second body. Clang! The hell-suppressing steel collided with one of the sword chi. The sword chi dissipated, and the hell-suppressing steel was sent flying. On the other side, it was a battle between sword chi. The sword chi whistled and filled the sky with sword chi. The two phoenix feather flying swords and the second body were blocked. However, at this moment, 3 more sword chi whistled out from the second body's forehead. There were 3 more phoenix feather flying swords. These 3 phoenix feather flying swords were beyond the red-robed old man's expectations. The 2 sword chi attacks just now had exhausted him, and he needed time to catch his breath. However, Lu Ming had already calculated the timing and grasped it perfectly. At this moment, he launched a sure-kill attack. The red-robed old man's pupils shrank rapidly as he roared in his heart. No! Pooh! 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 The 3 phoenix feather flying swords pierced through the red-robed old man's body. One went through his forehead, one went through his heart, and one went through his dantian. These 3 places were all vital points. The red-robed old man's eyes widened in disbelief. He could not believe that he would die in this battle, killed by Lu Ming. Then the red-robed old man's corpse fell to the ground. A second-layer martial monarch peak martial emperor, with a martial emperor spirit weapon was killed. The holy city was in an uproar. This was a battle that turned the tide of the battle. The emperor heavenly divine palace lost a peak expert. Who could stop Lu Ming now? The battle between the martial emperors in the sky became more intense. Casualties also started to appear among the martial emperors. Some martial emperors were injured, and some martial emperors even died on the spot. The battle was extremely tragic. Chapter 1348. However, although those sovereigns were fighting, they were also paying attention to the battlefield. At this moment, after discovering that Lu Ming had killed the red-robed elder, the sovereigns of the northern plains and the heaven-suppressing divine army were greatly motivated. On the other hand, Ditian divine palace and the Xie family were the opposite. They were all shocked. How is this possible? Someone shouted. Lu Ming had actually killed a peak second-level martial emperor, who was in control of an emperor-level spirit weapon. How could Lu Ming be so powerful? Would there be a shocking reversal in this battle because of Lu Ming? Boom! On the battlefield closest to Lu Ming, Tu Qian and Xia Zhuyang exchanged blows with De, and both sides retreated. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming's main body and second body broke through the void and appeared beside De, forming a pincer attack. Join forces to attack me? Fine, let's kill them together. At this moment, De was still extremely powerful, and his eyes were as sharp as a sword. De, why do we need to attack you together to kill you? Today, I will settle the score with you. Lu Ming said and locked his aura on De. Senior Zhuyang Tu Qian, go and help the others. Leave De to me. Lu Ming said. Yes. Tu Qian listened to Lu Ming's instructions. He did whatever Lu Ming said. He nodded and flew away, joining the other battle groups. He chopped down with his axe, and immediately split and Sovereign into two. Oh no, join forces and form a battle formation. And Sovereign shouted. Tu Qian's participation undoubtedly broke the balance. Some sovereigns shouted, and some sovereigns gathered to form a battlefield to defend. In this way, they could barely deal with Tu Qian. Lu Ming, Xia Zhuyang said and was a little worried for Lu Ming. Senior Zhuyang, don't worry. De and I have to make a decision today. Lu Ming said. Then be careful. Xia Zhuyang warned, and also attacked the other sovereigns. Lu Ming's side began to gain the upper hand. In the beginning, they had fewer rulers on their side, so they were at a disadvantage. Now the situation had reversed. After Xia Zhuyang left, only Martial Emperor De and Lu Ming were left. Boom! Both sides stood facing each other, their killing intent rumbling. After so many years, Lu Ming finally stood in front of De and had a decisive battle with him. Along the way, Lu Ming had experienced countless dangers and tribulations. Finally, he had reached his current combat power and was able to fight it out with De. Because of the 9 dragons' blood essence, the two of them were on opposing sides. A battle was inevitable. Wang! Lu Ming's spine emitted waves of heat, and a bloody glow filled the air. That was the reaction of the 9 dragons' bloodline. At the same time, Emperor De's body was filled with a blood-red light, and the faint sound of a dragon's roar could be heard. Blood essence of the 9 dragons. Lu Ming's mind flickered. Through the 9 dragons' bloodline, he could sense the 9 dragons' blood essence in Martial Emperor De. Unlike Lu Ming, De's 9 dragons' blood essence had not awakened his bloodline. Instead, it had merged with his body. That was right. When De obtained the 9 dragons' blood essence, he was already a martial emperor. He could not use it to awaken his bloodline. He could only refine it. Kill. De did not want to waste any more time. He launched an attack and charged toward Lu Ming. Bang! 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 The second body stepped on the void, and a great formation appeared. There were all kinds of trapping and attacking formations. They emitted all kinds of lights, and charged toward Martial Emperor De. At the same time, Sword Qi whistled and 5 phoenix feather flying swords stabbed toward De. The spirit-suppressing Steel's bloodline also charged toward De with the chaotic will. De's combat strength was very strong. He was even stronger than the red-robed old man. However, he was also caught in the red-robed old man's situation. He was put in a difficult position by Lu Ming's main body and second body. He could not use his strength at all. After fighting for a while, Lu Ming began to gain the upper hand. Lu Ming, today, let me show you my strongest combat strength. Martial Emperor De roared furiously. His body began to glow. All kinds of lights were emitted from De's body. These lights formed all kinds of strange phenomena. There were true dragons flying, phoenixes crying, qilins stepping on the air, divine birds flying in the sky, iron swords moving freely. All kinds of strange phenomena appeared on De's body. Lu Ming even saw the 9 dragons among them. 10,000 veins spiritual body. De let out a long howl. His body exuded a terrifying fluctuation. Whoosh! Whoosh! De's combat strength increased greatly. The golden battle sword flew across the sky. Sword Qi moved freely, breaking everything. The formation set up by Ming Lian's second body was instantly destroyed by the sword Qi. Clang! The battle sword struck the spirit-suppressing steel's bloodline. The spirit-suppressing steel's bloodline shook violently and flew far away. The spirit-suppressing steel's bloodline. Fortunately, there was a fragment of the spirit-suppressing steel's main body, which greatly increased its defense. Otherwise, Lu Ming would not have dared to fight it head-on. Ding! 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 The 5 phoenix feather flying swords were sent flying. So was the second body, who kept retreating. How powerful! Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Di's combat strength had suddenly increased greatly. It was all because of the strange phenomena on his body. Lu Ming guessed that Di must have cultivated a powerful spiritual body with the help of the blood essence of all spirits. When the spiritual body exploded, its power was far beyond that of an ordinary spiritual body. Spirits of all things kill, Di hollered. The various living creatures in his body suddenly roared and transformed into streaks of rainbow lights, charging toward Lu Ming. Roar! Lu Ming saw 9 dragons, true dragons, and Qilins among them. They emitted a shocking aura and attacked Lu Ming. The spirit-suppressing steel vibrated. It used the spirit-suppressing heavenly skill, which carried the chaotic will, and attacked continuously. Bang! 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 Explosions sounded continuously. Di himself held the battle sword and attacked Ming Lian's second body. I'll kill you first, Di said coldly. In his eyes, the second body was more difficult to deal with. It had many tricks and thousands of changes. He had to kill the second body first. Lu Ming's main body was nothing to be afraid of. Di, you think you can kill me? Today, I'll show you something. Ming Lian's second body looked calm and smiled inexplicably. Whoosh! Ming Lian's second body waved his hand, and a scroll flew out and expanded rapidly, encapsulating Martial Emperor Di Yi's figure. The Million Formation Illustration. Liao Cong's Million Formation Illustration. Martial Emperor Di Yi shouted angrily. Then, I'll let you taste the power of the Million Formation Illustration again. Ming Lian's second body's golden spirit fire jumped between his eyebrows. Endless light shone on the Million Formation Illustration. It was a large formation densely packed. One by one, the big matrices lit up. Countless terrifying attacks flew out and attacked Di. Whoosh! Whoosh! Di held the battle sword. Sword Qi whistled and slashed out crazily, destroying the attacks. However, the Million Formation Illustration had endless formations and endless attacks. It seemed to be endless, attacking Di continuously. There was no doubt that the Million Formation Illustration was also an emperor's spiritual weapon. Chapter 1349. Back then, Liao Cong was an inscriptionist who controlled the spiritual weapon, the Million Formation Atlas. He had many tricks up his sleeves, which was why Di launched a sneak attack on him. Even so, Liao Cong still left a trace of his imprint underground. The Million Formation Atlas was severely damaged. Over the years, Ming Lian's second body had been cultivating hard in the Saint Mansion's secret realm. As his cultivation increased, he had also been repairing the Million Formation Atlas. Now the Million Formation Atlas was 80 to 90% repaired. Under the control of the second body, its power was amazing. Ming Lian's second body had the combat strength of the peak of the second level of the martial royal realm. With the addition of the 5 phoenix feather flying swords, he was even more powerful. Now that he had used the Million Formation Atlas, his combat strength was almost the same as Di Yi's. Di could only use all his attention to deal with Ming Lian's second body. Buzz! At this moment, the prison-suppressing steel vibrated and suppressed Di. Damn it! Di roared in his heart. He divided part of his attention to resist Lu Ming's main body. Boom! The prison-suppressing steel weighed hundreds of millions of pounds. It made Di's body shake. At the same time, Ming Lian's second body seized the opportunity to launch a storm-like attack. Trap him! There were at least 100 entrapment formations in the Million Formation Atlas. They suppressed Di at the same time, trying to trap him. Di roared and tried his best to fight. Unfortunately, he was at a disadvantage. After Ming Lian's second body had used the Million Formation Atlas, the combat strength of the main body, and the second body had surpassed Di Yi's. Di tried his best to fight back, but after dozens of moves, he was completely suppressed, and had almost no power to fight back. Whoosh! 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 The 5 phoenix feather flying swords pierced the void. They were so fast that even ordinary emperors could not see them clearly. They stabbed toward De's 5 vital points. De waved his battle sword to block. Although he blocked them, the prison-suppressing steel suppressed him again. De roared and could only cover his body with his realm and vital essence. Boom! The realm and vital essence shook violently and were defeated by the prison-suppressing steel. De's body shook violently. Even though he had cultivated the 10,000 veins spiritual body, he could not resist. His face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The 10,000 meridian spirit body that De cultivated was very terrifying. If he cultivated it to perfection, his power would be amazing. Unfortunately, his cultivation was not perfect, and he did not succeed completely. Therefore, he had always wanted to get Lu Ming's 9 dragons blood essence. Many people's hearts trembled. De was injured and was no match for Lu Ming. Could it be that the outcome of the battle would be decided this time? Boom! Boom! As soon as De was injured, Lu Ming launched an even fiercer attack. Puff! A phoenix feather flying sword almost pierced through De's heart. It pierced through his shoulder, bringing out a stream of blood. De's face was even paler. Although the phoenix feather flying sword had not pierced his vital parts, its terrible sword chi and destructive power still made his injuries worse. The more serious his injuries were, the more difficult it would be for him to resist Lu Ming. Under the pressure of the prison-defending monument, he spat out mouthfuls of blood. His body staggered and his breathing weakened. Trap! The second body shouted softly. The million formation image shone, and a great formation appeared, enveloping De. De roared and tried his best to resist, but this time, it was difficult for him to rush out. The avatars of dragons and phoenixes on his body were trembling, as if they would collapse at any moment. De, today is the day you die. Lu Ming's cold voice came from the hell-suppressing tombstone. Roar! With a dragon's roar, the 9 dragons' bloodline flew out from the hell-suppressing tombstone. It opened its mouth and roared loudly. A devouring power burst out, enveloping De. 9 dragons' blood essence take. Lu Ming shouted loudly, and the devouring power increased crazily. It could be seen that one of the avatars on De's body was a 9 dragons. At this time, the 9 dragons were being devoured by the devouring power, and involuntarily flew towards the 9 dragons' bloodline. Lu Ming wanted to take a drop of 9 dragons' blood essence from De's body. Don't even think about it. De tried his best to resist. Whoosh! 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 5 phoenix feather flying swords shot out rapidly. De blocked 4 of them, but one of them hit him, almost cutting off half of his body. Roar! At this time the 9 dragons' bloodline roared. The 9 dragons' avatars on De's body flew towards the 9 dragons' bloodline. At the same time, a drop of blood essence appeared on De's body. The dragon roared and flew towards Lu Ming. The 9 dragons' blood essence was taken away. De was unwilling, but he could only watch helplessly. Whoosh! The 9 dragons' blood essence flew into the mouth of the 9 dragons' bloodline and disappeared. Roar! The 9 dragons' bloodline roared loudly, as if it was very satisfied. Its aura grew stronger. Xiechitian, if you don't do it now, when will you? Suddenly, De roared angrily. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. 9 heaven bronze men go. Xiechitian's loud voice came from the sky. Dong! 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 As soon as Xiechitian's voice fell, violent vibrations came from 9 different places in the sacred city. 9 powerful auras shot up into the sky. Following that, everyone saw 9 golden rays of light shoot up into the sky. Those are the bronze men. Lu Ming saw that the 9 lights were 9 bronze men. They were golden all over and made of brass. They were more than 3 meters tall, and densely packed inscriptions appeared on their bodies. Their auras were extremely powerful. Each of them was an emperor, equivalent to a LV1 Martial Royal Realm Emperor. The 9 bronze men flew into the sky and joined the battle, pushing back the 9 emperors. Merge with the bronze men. Xiechitian's voice came again. At this moment, 9 sovereigns from the Xie clan and the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace flew towards the 9 bronze men. It was as if they were performing bloodline fusion. These 9 sovereigns directly fused into the bronze men and disappeared. The auras of the 9 bronze men started to rise rapidly. They broke through LV1 Martial Royal Realm and reached LV2 Martial Royal Realm. They continued to rise until they reached peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm. 9 peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm Emperors. Oh no! Lu Ming was shocked. Kill! Kill! The 9 bronze men roared and charged toward the divine guards and the emperors of the northern plains. Peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm Emperors were too powerful. Ordinary LV1 Martial Royal Realm Emperors could not resist. Screams were heard all of a sudden. Lu Ming saw that 5 emperors had been killed in an instant. On the northern plains side, Martial Royal Realm Broken Mountain, Martial Royal Realm Tianfeng, and 3 Martial Royal Realm Emperors were killed in an instant. 5 Martial Royal Realm Emperors were killed just like that. The other 4 bronze men were blocked by Tu Qian, Xia Zhuyang, and the Baijian Martial Royal Realm Emperor. Otherwise, they would have suffered a greater loss. Oh no, that's the 9 Heavens Bronze Man of the Xia family. The 9 Heavens Bronze Man of the Xia family is still here. Fall back, fall back. The experts of the Heaven Suppression Army and the Northern Plains side all roared in fear. It was said that when the ancient sacred dynasty was first established, the first sacred emperor had gathered the experts of the world and spent a lot of effort to forge 9 bronze men. Each bronze man was extremely mysterious and powerful. Chapter 1350. As soon as the 9 bronze men appeared, they were controlled by 9 sovereigns. Their combat strength was at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm, and they instantly turned the tables. Boom! While Lu Ming was distracted, Di burst out. His body burned like flames as he rushed out of the encirclement and flew into the sky. Lu Ming, you are the ones who will die today. You are no match for me. Di roared as his body emitted a cold killing intent. Gather, gather together. Baijian Martial Emperor gathered everyone. The Xie clan's foundation was too shocking. No wonder it was said that no one in the history of the sacred city had ever been breached. With such a strong foundation, who could defeat them? Under the control of 9 Martial Royal Realm experts, the 9 bronze men were equivalent to peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm experts. How strong was the combat strength of 9 peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm experts? Baijian Martial Emperor, Tu Qian, Xia Zhuyang, Barbarian Martial Emperor, Yuexin Martial Emperor, and the others gathered together and looked at the 9 bronze men cautiously. Kill! Kill them! Xie Qitian gave the order. Kill! Kill! The 9 bronze men were 3 meters tall. As they stepped on the void exploded continuously. They formed an arc and flew towards Baijian Martial Emperor and the others. Beside them were Xie Qitian and the other sovereigns. They won. The Xie clan and Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace will win. There is no suspense in this battle. From now on, the divine region will belong to the Xie clan and Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. In the sacred city, many people who were watching the battle sighed. They felt that there was no suspense in this battle. The Xie clan and Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace would win for sure. With the appearance of the 9 bronze men, the outcome of the battle was set. Some people sighed. This battle was too exciting. Even the lives of sovereigns were like grass in a battle between sovereigns. Up until now, more than 10 sovereigns had fallen. This battle would be recorded in the annals of history and spread through the ages. Let's fight to the death. Baijian Martial Emperor roared. Kill! Tu Qian held his battle axe and rushed towards a bronze man. He chopped down with his axe. As for the bronze man, he punched out. Clang! Tu Qian was controlling a sovereign spiritual weapon, and his combat strength was stronger. He sent the bronze man flying with his axe. He is not injured. The hearts of Baijian Martial Emperor and the others shuddered. Although Tu Qian managed to send a bronze statue flying and had the upper hand, the bronze statue was completely fine. Only a faint mark appeared on his fist. It was too hard. Even an emperor-grade spirit weapon couldn't cut it, so how could they fight it? The eyes of the Baijian Martial Emperor and the others flickered with despair. 3 of us will deal with this puppet. As for the rest, kill them. Don't let a single one of them go. A voice came from a bronze statue. Whoosh! Whoosh! A few bronze men started to surround Tu Qian, while the rest of the bronze men attacked Baijian Wu Huang and the others. With a flicker, two figures appeared in front of the Baijian martial emperor and the others. They were Lu Ming's main body and second body. At this moment, Lu Ming's main body had returned to its human form. Leave these 9 bronze men to me. You guys go deal with the others, Lu Ming said. Ah, what? Baijian martial emperor and the others were stunned. The 9 bronze statues were to be given to Lu Ming? Lu Ming was going to deal with the 9 bronze statues on his own. How was this possible? Although Lu Ming's strength was strong, and he might be able to deal with 2 or 3 bronze statues, how could Lu Ming stand a chance against so many 9 heavens bronze statues? These were 9 bronze statues with cultivation of the second-layer martial dominator realm, and they were extremely hard. Even a third-layer martial dominator realm expert would not be able to break them. Lu Ming, let's work together. There's still hope. That's right, it's too dangerous for you to fight alone. The barbarian emperor, Wuxia martial emperor, and the others spoke. Kill Lu Ming first. Since he wants to die, let's kill him first. Xie Qitian yelled in the sky. Kill! Kill! Bang! 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 The 9 bronze statues charged at Lu Ming. It seemed like they would be able to shatter some of the statues. Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron suppress. The 9 dragons' bloodline appeared above Lu Ming's head. He opened his mouth and roared. 9 large cauldrons appeared from the mouths of the 9 dragons. Once the large cauldrons appeared, they expanded rapidly. They were as large as mountains and blasted toward the 9 bronze men. Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. You brought the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. Martial Emperor De yelled in fear in the sky. The Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron had never moved. It had been refined by an ancient expert to suppress the 9 dragon veins. In history, only Lu Ming had made the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron move once because of the blood of the 9 dragons. Even De, who had obtained a drop of the blood of the 9 dragons, had refined it into his body in order to cultivate the 10,000 veins spiritual body. Therefore, he could not use the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. Moreover, if the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron was too far away from the 9 dragon veins, the dragon veins would go berserk, and the cauldron would fly back. Most importantly, why did no one in 9 Dragons City inform him that Lu Ming had taken the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron? Roar! The 9 dragons roared as the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron charged at the 9 bronze statues. Break! The 9 bronze statues attacked together and threw a punch. Dong! Dong! It was as if 2 metal mountains had collided with each other, emitting a terrifying rumble. The sound waves from the collision between the metals made the faces of some ordinary rulers turn pale. The vital essence covering their bodies trembled. Bang! 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 Then, the 9 bronze statues flew far away like cannonballs. How is this possible? Xie Qitian and the others were stunned. The 9 bronze statues fell to the ground. They were no match for Lu Ming and were sent flying. How is this possible? On the other hand, Baijian martial emperor and the others were overjoyed. Suppress! Lu Ming shouted. The 9 cauldrons continued to suppress the 9 bronze statues. When Lu Ming was still in the Sea of Soul realm, and his 9 dragons bloodline was only at the 2nd level of the divine realm, he could control the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron and fight against a martial emperor. In the end, when the 9 cauldrons gathered together, he could even exchange a blow with De Yi's clone. Now Lu Ming's cultivation was many times stronger than before. Moreover, his 9 dragons bloodline had reached the 9th level of the divine realm. The power of the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron was naturally many times stronger. It could completely suppress the 9 bronze statues. Boom! 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 The Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron suppressed the 9 bronze statues. The 9 bronze statues trembled violently, and the patterns on them shone brightly, as if they were burning. But in just a few breaths of time, it seemed to burn out. The light on the bronze figure's body rapidly dimmed. Following that, 9 consecutive explosions rang out as the 9 bronze statues actually exploded. The 9 heaven bronze statues were made by the first sacred emperor of the ancient Saint dynasty. Finally, they exploded under the attack of the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. The 9 sovereigns who had merged with the bronze statues and controlled them did not even have time to scream before they turned into ashes. The 9 bronze statues were destroyed. The scene suddenly became silent. Everyone could not believe what they had just seen. Xiao. At this moment a corpse fell from the sky. Di Hongcheng, it was Di Hongcheng. He was killed. Chapter 1351. In the end, Xiao Wan was stronger than Di Hongcheng. After fighting for so long, he had finally killed Di Hongcheng. During the battle, Xiao Wan had been paying attention to the situation. He knew everything that was happening. Attack together and decide the victor. Xiao Wan's voice rang out, his killing intent sharp as a knife. Attack! Kill! Baijian martial monarch, Chu Luo, barbarian emperor, and the others charged at the remaining sovereigns of the Xie clan and Ditian divine palace. As for the remaining sovereigns of the Xie clan and Ditian divine palace, they did not have any fighting spirit at all. Lu Ming is not a match for him. Run! Run quickly! The sovereigns of the Xie clan and Ditian divine palace were nearly scared out of their wits. They no longer had any fighting spirit and turned to run. Dang! Dang! The divine 9-dragon cauldron shook, suppressing the surroundings and blocking their path. Whoosh! Martial monarch De suddenly charged in a direction. Since the situation was over, De also prepared to run. De, where are you going? Lu Ming shouted, and the 2 divine 9-dragon cauldrons pressed down on De. Dong! Dong! De used the sovereign spirit weapon to block, but it was useless. The battle sword buzzed, and De vomited a large mouthful of blood. Cracks appeared on his body, and he almost exploded. Burn! Martial monarch De roared. The true dragons, phoenixes, and other mysterious phenomena around him suddenly burned fiercely. His aura suddenly increased by several times. Whoosh! Martial monarch De turned into a beam of light and charged out of the encirclement, flying into the distance. After him, Lu Ming did not hesitate. He controlled the divine 9-dragon cauldron and chased after martial monarch De. At the same time, he secretly instructed Tu Qian to lead people to kill the remaining sovereigns of the Xie clan and Ditian divine palace. After being surrounded by the divine 9-dragon cauldron, the remaining sovereigns of the Xie clan and Ditian divine palace were surrounded by Tu Qian, Baijian martial monarch, and the others. There was no need for him to worry about this anymore. The situation was set. Although there were still some sovereigns of the Xie clan and Ditian divine palace, they were not too strong. The old general blocked Xietsangxiong. On Lu Ming's side, there were experts like Tu Qian, Xiao Wan, Baijian martial emperor, and Xia Zhuyang. Xiao! Xiao! The 2 of them instantly disappeared into the distance. In the imperial city, another great battle had erupted. However, there was no suspense in this battle. The sovereigns of the Xie clan and the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace were killed one after another. Lu Ming and De, one chasing and the other fleeing, traveled tens of thousands of miles in an instant. The second body took a step forward and disappeared between Lu Ming's eyebrows. At the same time, inscriptions appeared on Lu Ming's body. They were all auxiliary inscriptions, and almost all of them increased speed. Lu Ming's speed greatly increased, and he began to approach Emperor De. De, you've lost. Where do you think you're going? Lu Ming's voice rang out as he circulated the wind origin technique, increasing his speed. De's face was pale. His eyes were cold and full of murderous intent. Without saying a word, he gritted his teeth and ran away. Flames burned on his body, allowing him to move at an astonishing speed. De was burning his 10,000 veins spiritual body. Lu Ming, don't be happy too early. I'm going to tear you to pieces. De roared in his heart. His murderous intent toward Lu Ming had reached its peak. De had cultivated for 10,000 years, taking all kinds of bloodlines, and using the essence blood of all kinds of experts to cultivate the 10,000 veins spiritual body. Originally, he was just one step away from success and perfection. However, now all his previous efforts were in vain. In order to escape, he burned his 10,000 veins spiritual body. All his hard work over the years was for naught. The 2 of them, one chasing and the other fleeing, moved at an astonishing speed. They tore through the void and traveled through the alternate space. Soon, they crossed the middle continent and arrived in the northern plains. Then, they flew toward the boundless ocean. Damn it! Emperor De roared in his heart. He was getting more and more anxious. He was already seriously injured. After the long journey, his injuries worsened. If this continued, Lu Ming would catch up to him. He was not willing to accept this. How could he die here? He wanted to tear Lu Ming to pieces. Suddenly, he clenched his teeth and revealed a resolute expression. Lu Ming, just you wait. De let out a roar, and the flames on his body suddenly surged. Explode! Burn! De roared. Then his speed suddenly skyrocketed. He passed through layers of space and quickly left. The distance between him and Lu Ming rapidly increased. This guy. Lu Ming also admired De's decisiveness. He could see that De had completely burned his spiritual body. His 10,000 veins spiritual body was completely wasted. Even if he escaped, De might not be able to maintain his cultivation. He might even regress. In the future, it might even be difficult for him to improve. In order to survive, De was going all out. The distance between the two grew larger and larger. In the end, Lu Ming could barely see De's shadow. After a while, Lu Ming could no longer see or sense De's existence. Lu Ming had no choice but to stop. This guy still managed to escape. However, this guy is seriously injured and has completely burned his spiritual body. His cultivation will definitely regress. In the future, he won't be a threat to me. However, Lu Ming frowned. He thought of Di Hongcheng and the red-robed elder. Where did these two people come from? And they used a unified sovereign spiritual weapon. Could there be a powerful force behind De? Lu Ming was not worried about De himself. What he was worried about was the force behind De. Forget it. I'll deal with it as it comes. Thinking of this, Lu Ming turned around and walked toward Sacred City. By the time Lu Ming returned to Sacred City, the battle in Sacred City had already ended. There was no suspense. With Tu Qian and Xiao Wan, the battle was almost one-sided. Almost all the sovereigns of Di Tian Divine Palace were killed. Only a few sovereigns who were originally the overlords of Zhongzhou State surrendered to De and were controlled by Xiao Wan and the others. After engraving a formation, they could only obey their orders. As for the sovereigns of the Xie family, only a few were left. The rest were all killed. Xie Qitian, the old Saint Emperor, Xie Zongxiong, and a white-haired elder were surrounded by Xiao Wan and the others. Xiao Wan and the others knew about the relationship between Lu Ming and Xie Nianqing. They also knew that Xie Nianqing was a member of the Xie family. Therefore, they did not kill these people. They deliberately waited for Lu Ming to return. Xie Qitian and the others stood on the platform. Their eyes were lifeless and filled with despair. They had lost. They had suffered a crushing defeat. This time, the Xie family was in a worse state than 30,000 years ago when Xiao Wan caused chaos in the world and betrayed the Xie family. Last time, they had at least suppressed Xiao Wan and retained some strength. There was still hope for them to slowly recover. However, this time they were completely defeated. Their masters were all dead and injured. There was nothing they could do. How could this be? In Sacred City, countless disciples of the Xie family, such as Xie Yan, were paralyzed on the ground. Their eyes were lifeless. The Xie family had lost. Even their sovereigns had been defeated. The others could not do anything. If they made a move, they would only be courting death. The other martial artists had complicated looks in their eyes. Was the ancient Saint Dynasty Xie family, which had been passed down for millions of years, going to be destroyed from now on? From now on, who would be the master of the divine region? Chapter 1352. General Lu. General Lu. Seeing that Lu Ming had returned, all the emperors bowed to Lu Ming. They looked at Lu Ming with awe and respect. Whether it was the emperors of the divine army like Baijian Wu Huang, or the northern plains, they were all the same. The reason why they could win this battle was all because of Lu Ming. Right from the beginning, Lu Ming had displayed incredible combat power. He had killed the first emperor of the Netherworld, the red-robed elder, and fought De. Slowly, he had turned the tide of the battle and allowed them to gain the upper hand. Later, The Xie clan took out the ninth heaven bronze man and changed the situation. At that time, they thought that they were going to lose and that there was no hope for this battle. But at the critical moment, Lu Ming turned the tide and destroyed the ninth heaven bronze man and killed the 9 emperors. This time, the situation was completely reversed and they had secured victory. Without Lu Ming, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Hearing the commotion, Xie Qitian, the old saint emperor, and the others trembled slightly. They also looked at Lu Ming with complicated expressions. It was all because of this young man. It was all because of him that the Xie clan had fallen to such a state. Back then, it was Lu Ming who saved Xiaowan. Xiaowan threw out the Heavenly King Edict and changed the situation of the divine region. It also disrupted the Xie clan's deployment and directly led to the subsequent battle. And this time, it was also because of Lu Ming that the Xie clan had suffered a crushing defeat. Were we wrong? Was it worth it because of the purity of the bloodline? The old saint emperor looked even older. He sighed and his voice fell into Xie Qitian's ears, making him feel even more complicated. Yes, was it worth it? Speaking of which, the source of all this was not caused by him. If he had treated Xian Yinqing well, then Lu Ming might have walked together with the Xie clan and even become a member of the Xie clan. Then, it was not impossible for the Xie clan to unify the divine region again. Speaking of which, it was all because of him. He had personally turned Lu Ming into an enemy. At this moment, he did not know what to feel in his heart. Lu Ming, where's De? Xiaowan walked towards Lu Ming and asked through voice transmission. He escaped. Lu Ming replied. Escaped? Xiaowan was slightly stunned and said, no harm either. De's vitality is greatly damaged and can't stir up any waves either. Lu Ming nodded. General Lu, how should we deal with these people from the Xie family? To kill or not to kill? A ruler asked Lu Ming. Everyone looked at Lu Ming. After this battle, Lu Ming's position in everyone's hearts was very important, even far exceeding Xiaowan's. Lu Ming looked at Xian Yinqing. At this moment, Xian Yinqing was looking at Xie Qitian and the others. No one knew what he was thinking. All right, I promise you. After pondering for a while, Lu Ming said, the Xie clan was no longer a threat, let alone sealing themselves for 10,000 years. Not to mention 10,000 years. Lu Ming was confident that he could destroy the Xie clan in 10 more years. After 10,000 years, Lu Ming's cultivation would have reached an unknown level. Why would he care about a mere Xie clan? The other emperors didn't say anything. Lu Ming would definitely step into the emperor realm, and he would have a lifespan of 10,000 to 20,000 years. After 10,000 years, why would Lu Ming care about the Xie clan? What could the Xie clan do? The old sacred emperor, Xie Zongqiong, and the others immediately made a blood oath. The other higher-ups of the Xie clan, such as the sovereigns and spirit gods, all made a blood oath. Disciples of the Xie clan, follow me into the palace. The old sacred emperor's voice resounded, and all the direct descendants of the Xie clan followed the old sacred emperor and the others into the palace. After that, a screen of light appeared outside the palace and enveloped the palace. The Xie clan would seal themselves for 10,000 years, and they wouldn't be able to step out of the palace for 10,000 years. At this point, the curtains of the battle had completely fallen. In this battle, more than half of the divine wilderness continent's emperors had fallen, and more than 60 to 70% of the overlord forces had been wiped out. It could be said that the divine wilderness continent had never been so weak, and there were so few emperors. Let's go. Let's return to the 100 Beast tribe. Lu Ming waved his hands. He pulled Xian Yinqing and left by stepping into the air. The Heaven Suppression Army and the Northern Plains emperors followed Lu Ming back to the Northern Plains. As for the news of this battle, it spread from the Holy City to the entire divine wilderness continent at an unbelievable speed. Chapter 1353. In the meeting hall of the 100 Beast tribe, the sovereigns of the Heaven Suppression Army and the sovereigns of the Northern Plains took their seats. Lu Ming and Xiaowan sat at the top. The hall was silent. Everyone looked at each other, but no one made a sound. What should we do next? Xia Zhuoyang was the first to speak, breaking the silence. What should they do? Many thoughts flashed through everyone's mind. Now that the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace had been destroyed, and the Xia clan had suffered heavy losses, they had sealed themselves in the palace for 10,000 years. Aside from the western desert, the vast divine desolate continent was now ownerless. So what should they do next? In other words, how should they distribute it? Everyone wanted the boundless resources in this boundless territory. On the smaller side, there were some overlord factions present, such as the World Academy, the Floating Mountain Sect, and others. How should these factions distribute their territories? On the larger side, it was the Heaven Suppression Army and the Northern Plains factions. How should these two factions get along and distribute their territories? In fact, there were also Lu Ming and Xiao Wan's factions in the Northern Plains. However, they were only in an alliance. Everyone fell silent again, especially the Heaven Suppression Army. This was an important problem. If it was not solved properly, it might lead to another huge battle. However, how could the Heaven Suppression Army be a match for Lu Ming and the others? If they fought, they would be destroyed. Hence, the experts of the Heaven Suppression Army felt the most complicated. They found it difficult to speak. A mountain could not accommodate two tigers. Would Lu Ming and Xiao Wan attack them next? They were not confident. Why don't we form an alliance? After a long while, Xiao Wan spoke. An alliance? Many people's hearts trembled as they began to ponder. If we form an alliance, all the factions will form one faction. Then the entire divine desolate continent will be under our control. Why should we worry about territory and territory? Xiao Wan smiled. I agree. I agree too. At first it was Chu Luo, Mo Yi, and the others. Then Xia Zhuyang, the barbarian emperor, Yuexin martial monarch, and the others spoke one after another, expressing their agreement. Haha, Sovereign Luan Tian's suggestion is good. I agree too. The old general of the Heaven Suppression Army laughed and expressed his thoughts. In the end, everyone looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming still hadn't said anything. I have no objections either. Lu Ming smiled. All right, it's settled then. Xiao Wan smiled. Since it's an alliance, there must be an alliance leader. Who will be the alliance leader? All of a sudden a ruler spoke. The scene fell silent again. Who would be the leader? To form an alliance and form a force, there was no doubt that the leader of the alliance would be the master of the force. He would also be the master of the divine wilderness, the ruler of the world. Everyone couldn't help but look at the old general, Xiao Wan, and Lu Ming. Only these three people were qualified to do so. Of course it's Lu Ming. Lu Ming is so young, and his battle prowess is unparalleled. There has never been such a person since the divine desolate era. Other than him, who else could it be? Xia Zhuyang spoke first, recommending Lu Ming. That's right. If it wasn't for Lu Ming, how could we have ended up like this? In that case, we would be the ones who would die. Lu Ming turned the tide and turned the situation around. I also recommend Lu Ming to be the leader. One of the deans of the World Academy spoke. I also recommend Lu Ming. Me too. Following this, the other deans of the World Academy, the Barbaric Emperor, and Yuexin Martial Emperor recommended Lu Ming. Behind Lu Ming, the auras of the Heaven Suppression Divine Ape and Tu Qian went without saying. Everyone was stunned. Unknowingly, Lu Ming's force and strength had become so shocking. Lu Ming picked up a cup and drank slowly without saying a word. No one knew what he was thinking. The eyes of the martial emperors of the Heaven Suppression Army, Mo Yi, Chu Luo, and the others flickered as if they were planning something. Haha, not bad. I also recommend Lu Ming to be the alliance leader. Xiao Wan laughed and expressed his thoughts. The moment Xiao Wan spoke, Mo Yi, Chu Luo, and the others also spoke to support Lu Ming. In the end, only the Heaven Suppression Divine Army was left. The emperors of the Heaven Suppression Divine Army sighed in their hearts. They knew that they were weak and couldn't compete with Lu Ming. Now that Xiao Wan supported Lu Ming, how could they say no? Old General, what do you think? Xiao Wan looked at the old general with a faint smile. Little brother Lu Ming's talent is unprecedented. He has contributed the most this time. It is the blessing of the divine wilderness continent that Lu Ming is the alliance leader. I have no objections. The old general also spoke. The old general spoke. The 100 Battles Martial Emperor, and the others also recommended Lu Ming. Alright, then it's decided. This subordinate pays his respects to the alliance leader. Xiao Wan suddenly stood up from his seat and walked down to bow to Lu Ming. This subordinate pays his respects to the alliance leader. Xia Zhuyang, the barbaric emperor, and the others followed closely behind Xiao Wan and bowed to Lu Ming. Following that, Chu Luo and the others also bowed to Lu Ming. Finally, it was the Heaven Suppression Divine Army and the others. Alright, since the army recommends me so much, I, Lu Ming, will not decline. Lu Ming stood up and accepted the position of alliance leader. He didn't decline, nor did he need to. He needed this identity to better protect his family and friends. Alliance leader, since we are going to form an alliance, what should we name it? Someone suggested. The alliance leader has awakened the 9 dragons bloodline and is famous in the world. In my opinion, why don't we call ourselves the Dragon Alliance? Xia Zhuyang pondered for a moment and said, Dragon Alliance? I think it's fine. It's concise and domineering. Xiao Wan said, Alright, then we'll call ourselves the Dragon Alliance. In the end, Lu Ming made the decision. Now that the name was decided, the problem was, where would the Dragon Alliance's headquarters be? It couldn't be in the sacred city, right? Eastern Wilderness, Northern Plains, and Southern Underworld weren't good. The Dragon Alliance had to conquer the world and unify the Divine Wilderness. Its headquarters had to be in the Central Continent. Only then could it look down on the world. In the end, everyone discussed. Since the Dragon Alliance was building a new headquarters, it would be best to build one as well. After the discussion, everyone chose disciples in the vast land of the Central Continent. In the end, everyone decided to build the Dragon Alliance's headquarters on Dragon Leaping Mountain, about 150 million kilometers east of the sacred city. It would be called Dragon Emperor City. After the headquarters decided on the alliance leader's name, they started to choose the important core members. In the end, Xiao Wan and the Heaven Suppression Divine Army's old general would be the Dragon Alliance's deputy alliance leader. The other emperors would be the Dragon Alliance's protectors. Every protector had the power to control a territory. After the core members were decided, it was time to assign tasks. There were 2 main aspects to the current mission. First, they had to deploy manpower to build Dragon Emperor City. Second, they had to send an army to unify the Divine Wilderness continent. The Xie clan had sealed itself, and the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace had been destroyed. Almost all the overlord factions with emperors in the Divine Wilderness continent were members of the Dragon Alliance. However, there were countless factions of various sizes below the overlord factions. Chapter 1354. On the second day, when the news spread, the entire Dragon Alliance cheered. The war was over, and the Dragon Alliance ruled the world. The huge Dragon Alliance started to operate. The original major forces sent people to Dragon Leap Mountain to build the Dragon Emperor City. A portion of them sent an army to conquer the world. A few days later, the news of the Battle of Holy City spread across the world. The Divine Wilderness experienced a magnitude 10 earthquake. Countless cultivators and forces were shocked. A few days later, the Dragon Alliance was established, and Lu Ming was the alliance leader. The news spread across the Divine Wilderness through voice transmission jade talismans. Countless forces, big and small, surrendered and expressed their willingness to join the Dragon Alliance. Now that the Xie family had sealed the palace for 10,000 years, and the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was destroyed, the Dragon Alliance was truly invincible. No force dared to resist. Then the Dragon Alliance split into 3 groups. The old general led an army to sweep across the middle continent. Xiao Wan led an army to attack the southern underworld. As for Lu Ming, he personally led the army to the eastern wilderness. There was no suspense. The major and minor forces of the middle continent surrendered. When Xiao Wan attacked the southern underworld, he was only met with some resistance. Those who resisted were easily killed by Xiao Wan, and the rest surrendered. Half a month after the Battle of Holy City, Lu Ming led his people back to Yinyang Mountain. Yinyang Mountain is finally reclaimed by Shi Jin, Du Songjue, and the others stood in the sky, looking at the vast land of Yinyang Mountain. When Yinyang Mountain was attacked by De, and they were captured. They thought that they would never be able to reclaim Yinyang Mountain. They did not expect that they would be able to reclaim Yinyang Mountain in just a few months. Zhongzi, no alliance leader. Bai Shijin and the others looked at Lu Ming with complicated expressions. They did not know how to address him. Senior, since I am Master Liansong's disciple, I am the Zhongzi of the Talisman Puppet Sect. You can call me Zhongzi in private. Lu Ming said. Yes, Zhongzi. Bai Shijin du Songjue, and the others were overjoyed. Lu Ming was now the alliance leader of the Dragon Alliance. They were afraid that Lu Ming would look down on the Talisman Puppet Sect. But now, it seemed like Lu Ming did not forget his roots. There were many experts in the Dragon Alliance. On the other hand, the Talisman Puppet Sect still didn't have a ruler. They were afraid that the Talisman Puppet Sect wouldn't be able to compete with the other powerhouses in the Dragon Alliance. The other forces wouldn't be able to distribute enough resources and would decline. But now they did not have to worry. Lu Ming, the alliance leader, was the Zhongzi of the Talisman Puppet Sect. The Talisman Puppet Sect had an extraordinary status in the Dragon Alliance. They did not have to worry about not having an emperor to hold the fort and not being able to obtain resources. Senior Bai, Senior Du, in the future, both of you will lead the original disciples of the Talisman Puppet Sect to oversee the Yinyang Mountain. Yes, Zhongzi. Bai Shijin and Du Songjue complied. As for the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, it flew back to the Nine-Dragon City after the battle in the Holy City to suppress the Nine-Dragon veins. Out of Lu Ming's expectation, they did not encounter any resistance when they arrived at the Nine-Dragon City. The big and small forces in the Nine-Dragon City had already opened their gates. When Lu Ming's army arrived, the forces in the Nine-Dragon City knelt down and surrendered to Lu Ming. Greetings, Alliance Leader of the Dragon Alliance. We are willing to submit to the Dragon Alliance and serve the Alliance Leader. 5 or 6 supreme beings stood at the front and bowed respectfully. Hee old acquaintances. Lu Ming stood in the air and looked down at the 6 supreme beings. Among the 6 supreme martial artists, 3 of them were Lu Ming's old acquaintances. They were the remaining 3 family heads of the 6 ancient families, the Dongfang family head, the Kong family head, and the Nangong family head. The 3 patriarchs broke out in a cold sweat when Lu Ming glanced at them. Alliance Master, we were blind in the past and offended you. From now on, we will definitely be at your beck and call and do our best. The Dongfang clan patriarch said with a face full of cold sweat. The pressure emitted by Lu Ming made it difficult for him to breathe. They knew that if Lu Ming gave the order now, not only them, but also their families would not be spared. In the crowd behind, many of the geniuses who had fought with Lu Ming before, or even competed with him, knelt on the ground with complicated feelings. For example, Dongfang Yu and the others. A few years ago, Lu Ming was still competing with them. However, a few years later, Lu Ming was already standing at the pinnacle of the divine wilderness mainland. He reigned supreme in the world. There was really no comparison. Lu Ming chuckled. The Dongfang clan patriarch and the others trembled in fear. They did not understand what Lu Ming was thinking. Would he kill them? This kind of waiting was incomparably torturous. After a long while, Lu Ming said faintly, "Well, I allow you to surrender, but all your forces will be moved out of Nine-Dragon City to the northern plains. Do you have any objections?" No objections. Thank you for your kindness, Alliance Leader. This subordinate is grateful." The Dongfang clan patriarch and the others breathed a sigh of relief and thanked him repeatedly. To them, although Nine-Dragon City was their foundation, and they had developed here for nearly 10,000 years, it would be a pity to move away just like that. However, compared to the calamity of extermination, it was much better. Naturally, they didn't dare to say half a word. Soon after, the powerful forces in Nine-Dragon City began to take the cross-territory teleportation formation to the northern plains. There were naturally people in the northern plains to arrange for them. As for the smaller forces in Nine-Dragon City, there was no need for them to stay. They could not make any waves even if they stayed. After that, Lu Ming left Xia Zhuyang, Yin Kuangtu, and the others to deal with Nine-Dragon City, the original Heavenly Corpse sect, and the myriad Demon Valley. Lu Ming flew towards the east alone. Soon after, Lu Ming entered the Tianxian region. However, Lu Ming did not go to the Tianxian branch palace immediately. The first place he went to was the 100 Deities Slope. The Battle of the Holy City had spread across the entire Divine Wilderness continent, including the Tianxian region. Some of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's branch palaces were in chaos. Without any control, there were all kinds of fights over the treasures of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Some of the branch palaces were restrained and were waiting for news. They knew that if the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was destroyed, there would definitely be a powerful force taking over the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's territory. There would definitely be someone to take over them. The Tianxian branch palace was not in chaos. In a courtyard in the center of Tianxian City, a few people were drinking tea and discussing matters. The leader was the palace master of the Tianxian branch palace, Mu Tian. Beside him were Mu Yi and Mu Zheng. Who would have thought that the vast Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, that had been passed down for 10,000 years, would fall just like that? Mu Yi drank a cup of wine and sighed. A few days ago, when they received the news, they were shocked and could not believe it. The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was such a colossus. How could it fall just like that? The path of martial arts is filled with danger. Even an Emperor Realm cultivator might fall if they are not careful. Mu Zheng also sighed. It is said that more than 20 emperors fell in this battle. Mu Tian said, his voice slightly interfering. Chapter 1355. Sovereigns were like gods in their eyes. They ruled over the world and were invincible. With a wave of their hands, they could destroy the heavens and the earth. With a thought, they could kill billions of people. They would never see such people in their lives. However, more than 20 of them had died in a battle. It was hard for them to imagine. The one behind all of this is Lu Ming. Mu Tian suddenly let out another sigh. Mu Yi and Mu Zheng fell silent. Brother, is the Lu Ming you're talking about the Lu Ming who walked out of our place? Mu Yi asked after pondering for a while. His eyes were filled with disbelief. It was said that the one who dominated the battle was a young genius called Lu Ming. He had killed more than 10 sovereigns and was terrifyingly powerful. That young man was called Lu Ming. After the battle, almost all the sovereigns and powerful forces in the Divine Wilderness continent formed an alliance called the Dragon Alliance. The leader of the Dragon Alliance was Lu Ming. I'm not sure. We are in the borderlands. The news I received was not very detailed. I only know that Lu Ming came from the Eastern Wilderness. Mu Tian said. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Came from the Eastern Wilderness? Could it be the same person? Mu Yi and Mu Zheng let out a long breath. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a violent explosion sounded outside Tianxian City. What's going on? Mu Tian stood up abruptly. His voice could be heard from afar. Whoosh! A figure appeared and quickly reported. Palace Master, something bad has happened. The Palace Master of the Black Knife region's Emperor Heaven Divine Palace has led his men to invade. What? Black Knife region? Mu Tian's face changed drastically. Damn it! The Black Knife region is taking advantage of the situation. Mu Zheng shouted angrily. When the news of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's destruction spread, the subordinate palaces were in chaos. Some of the subordinate palaces snatched the treasures that belonged to the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, and some even snatched the treasures of other subordinate palaces. The palace master of the Black Knife region's subordinate palace was the same. He brought his men to plunder everywhere. Since the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace had been destroyed, no one cared. These people wanted to plunder a batch of treasures, and then go far away to hide and cultivate. Whoosh! 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 One by one, figures rushed into Tianxian City as powerful auras filled the air. Men, meet the enemy! Mu Tian shouted and soared into the sky. Mu Yi and Mu Zheng followed closely behind. At the same time, figures flew out from all over Tianxian City to join Mu Tian and the others. As soon as they met up, a group of people flew over from the front. They were all dressed in black robes and carried black sabers on their backs. The leader of the group had a fierce-looking face and a long beard. He was tall and sturdy. Daoheng, what are you doing? Mu Tian roared. Haha, what are you trying to do? It's very simple. Hand over all the spiritual herbs, spiritual materials, and treasures in your profound Sky Branch Palace, and I'll spare your lives. The curly-bearded man Dao Heng laughed out loud. Don't even think about it. Dao Heng, how dare you? Although the Heavenly Emperor Divine Palace has been destroyed, the Dragon Alliance has been established and will rule over the world. They will definitely take over the original forces of the Heavenly Emperor Divine Palace. If you do this, you will be hunted down by the Dragon Alliance. Mu Tian roared. Haha, what a joke. The Dragon Alliance is such a huge force. How can they notice our border wasteland so quickly? Even if they do, we are just small fries in their eyes. They won't pursue this matter. Cut the crap and hand over the treasures. Dao Heng said ferociously. Don't even think about it. Mu Tian's attitude was tough. You're courting death. Kill. Dao Heng roared and took the lead to attack Mu Tian. The people he brought with him also charged towards Mu Yi and the others. Mu Tian released the aura of the third level of the spiritual sea realm. After all these years of cultivation, Mu Tian's cultivation had improved a little and reached the third level of the spiritual sea realm. Mu Yi and Mu Zheng had also broken through their limits and entered the spiritual sea realm. They were both at the first level of the spiritual sea realm. In addition, there were 2 martial artists at the first level of the spiritual sea realm on Tianxian Branch Palace's side. However, the Black Knife region had more experts. There were 8 spiritual sea realm martial artists, and Dao Heng's cultivation was also at the third level of the spiritual sea realm. For a moment, the Tianxian Branch Palace was at a disadvantage. Kill! Kill! The 2 sides fought fiercely. People were killed constantly, and their bodies fell in Tianxian City. However, although the Black Knife region had the upper hand, this was Tianxian City after all. The Tianxian Branch Palace had the home advantage and could use various formations to fight against the Black Knife region. Clang! 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 Mu Tian and Dao Heng clashed continuously. After dozens of moves, there was no clear winner. Mu Tian, I didn't expect you to break through to the third level of the spiritual sea realm without anyone noticing. Dao Heng's anxious voice was heard. In the past, the Black Knife region's strength was stronger than the Tianxian Branch Palace. Especially Dao Heng, who was at the third level of the spiritual sea realm. Among the palace masters of the nearby big regions, he was considered strong. He didn't expect Mu Tian to reach the third level of the spiritual sea realm without anyone noticing and be able to fight against him. The battle was suddenly in a state of anxiety. As for Lu Ming, he went to Baishan Slope. The 100 God Slope was filled with gray fog. It was hazy just like before. Lu Ming scanned with his spiritual sense and found that there was someone guarding outside the 100 God Slope. However, he was only a king-tier cultivator, which was far from Lu Ming's level. Lu Ming's figure moved and rushed into the 100 God Slope. The guards didn't notice him at all. As soon as he flew into the area filled with gray fog, Lu Ming felt a force acting on him, preventing him from flying. However, Lu Ming's current cultivation level was much stronger than it had been in the past. Lu Ming circulated his vital essence and counteracted this force. He continued to fly inside. The deeper he went, the stronger the force was. It was suppressing Lu Ming, wanting to completely suppress Lu Ming's cultivation. Back then, when Lu Ming came in, his cultivation was completely suppressed, and he became an ordinary person. What a strong force! Lu Ming could sense that the suppression from the outside world was no small matter. It was very shocking. Even with Lu Ming's cultivation, he felt like he was being suppressed. Moreover, the deeper he went, the stronger the suppression became. The intent here is also not simple. Lu Ming scanned the surroundings with his spiritual sense. Back then, when he came in, he was lucky and encountered wisps of intent of various attributes. He used them to comprehend and improve his intent. Those were left behind by the experts after they died. However, when Lu Ming looked at it now, he saw something different. The artistic conception that was floating between heaven and earth was indeed left behind by powerful cultivators after they died. However, Lu Ming could feel a terrifying oppression from them. Legend had it that the 100 God Slope was formed countless years ago when the sky split open and corpses fell down. Lu Ming estimated that those corpses were definitely above the emperor realm. It was very likely that they were the corpses of saints. Therefore, even though so many years had passed, his cultivation had to be suppressed when he came in with his current realm. Primal chaos. With a thought, Lu Ming's primal chaos intent lingered around his body. As soon as the primal chaos intent was released, Lu Ming felt his body lighten. The pressure disappeared without a trace. The primal chaos intent is so mysterious. Chapter 1356. Since the chaotic concept could block the pressure from the outside, Lu Ming had nothing to worry about. His figure flashed, and he turned into a beam of light, moving freely in the 100 Gods slope. The reason why he came to the 100 Gods slope was that he had obtained the lightning cauldron here. In addition, he had seen a round bead back then. There might be some good stuff in the 100 Gods slope. Therefore, Lu Ming came to check it out. However, after making a round, Lu Ming was disappointed. Other than the floating concept, Lu Ming did not find anything else, let alone any treasures. Lu Ming was a little disappointed. After all, the 100 Gods slope had been formed for too many years. Moreover, some treasures, such as sacred weapons, had intelligence and could fly away on their own. There might be some treasures in the 100 Gods slope's distant past. However, it had been too long. Some of them might have lost their intelligence and turned into dust. Some might have flown away on their own. Lu Ming was really lucky to have obtained the lightning cauldron last time. That is, suddenly Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He saw a strong wind blowing in front of him. In the wind, there was a round bead floating up and down. Outside the round bead, there was a small green bird flying around. It's that round bead. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He did not expect to see the round bead again. Swish! Lu Ming moved and pounced on the round bead. The small bird on the round bead seemed to be frightened. It chirped and flew into the round bead. The round bead flew away with a green light. Where are you going? Lu Ming executed the wind origin technique. His figure was like lightning, closing the distance between him and the round bead in an instant. The round bead was shocked again. With a shake, its speed increased greatly with a swish. It pulled away from Lu Ming. So fast. Lu Ming was shocked. Then he was overjoyed. This round bead was extraordinary. Even if it was not as magical as the lightning cauldron, it was at least superior to a sovereign spiritual weapon. Since Lu Ming had seen it, how could he return empty-handed? Lu Ming increased his speed and chased after the round bead. One chased while the other fled. They were like two bolts of lightning. In a short while, they had circled around the 100 Gods slope a few times. Whoosh! At this time, Lu Ming waved his hand and reached forward. A giant claw formed. It was 10 miles long and wide. It was wrapped in the chaos concept and grabbed at the bead. The large hand immediately enveloped the bead. The bead buzzed and rushed in a certain direction. However, when the bead came into contact with the concept of primal chaos, it suddenly stopped and did not continue to escape. Instead, it approached the concept of primal chaos and trembled slightly. Lu Ming felt that the round bead was clearly enjoying itself. Lu Ming sucked and grabbed the bead with his claws. Then, he wrapped the bead with the chaos concept. As expected, the chaos concept resonated with the bead, and a message appeared in Lu Ming's mind. Air-frozen bead. This round bead was called air-frozen bead. It was a wind attribute treasure. Whoosh! The air-frozen bead vibrated and flew into Lu Ming's glabella. In his sea of consciousness, it stopped not far away from the lightning cauldron. Lu Ming's mind moved. A green energy rushed into Lu Ming's body from the air-frozen bead. Lu Ming performed the wind element technique. With a step, his figure disappeared from the spot and reappeared 1,000 miles away. Such a fast speed. The wind energy of this round bead can greatly increase my speed when I perform the wind element technique. Lu Ming was overjoyed. An increase in speed meant that his life-saving ability would be stronger. Air-frozen bead has surpassed an emperor spiritual weapon. It must have other mysteries. I'll slowly study it in the future. Let's make a trip to Tianxian City first. Lu Ming smiled slightly. Then he left the 100 Gods slope and headed toward Tianxian City. The Great Formation in Tianxian City was extremely fierce. There were casualties constantly. Even Mu Tian, Mu Yi, and Mu Zheng were injured. Tianxian City suffered heavy losses. However, the Black Knife region also suffered heavy losses. Damn it! Dao Heng roared in his heart. He didn't expect Tianxian City to be so difficult to deal with. What a piece of trash. You can't even take down Tianxian City after so long. At this moment, a cold shout came from the sky. Boom! Then a huge aura came down from the sky, causing Mu Tian and the others' faces to change drastically. 7th level of the spiritual sea realm. Mu Tian exclaimed and looked up. A figure wrapped in a black robe appeared in the sky. The shocking aura came from him. My lord, you're here. Seeing this person, Dao Heng was overjoyed. As for Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the others, their hearts sank. Dao Heng addressed the other party as my lord. It was obvious that the other party was on Dao Heng's side. Who was it that Dao Heng addressed him as my lord? Could it be that one of the higher-ups of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was taking the opportunity to collect treasures? Various thoughts flashed through Mu Tian and Mu Zheng's minds. Leave this person to me. You deal with the others. End it quickly. The voice of the black-robed man was heard. A slender black sword appeared in his hand, and he pierced it towards Mu Tian. The speed of this sword was shocking. Mu Tian's face changed drastically, and he retreated quickly. However, his figure was not as fast as the other party's sword light. The other party was at the 7th level of the spiritual sea tier, and was much stronger than him. Don't hurt my father. At this moment, a delicate shout came from Tianxian City. A fiery red sword light flew out, and clashed with the black-robed man's sword light. Clang! The black-robed man's sword light was blocked, and the fiery red sword light was also sent flying. Swish! A figure rushed out from below, and stood in front of Mu Tian. Lan'er! Mu Tian called out. Mulins! The figure that appeared behind him was Mulins. Mulins stood in the sky and released a powerful aura. She was also at the 7th level of the spiritual sea tier. Father, why didn't you call me? Mulins asked. Lan'er, you were in seclusion previously, so I didn't call you. Mu Tian said. Hee, I didn't expect that there would be such a beautiful girl here. How lucky. The black-robed man's eyes roamed around Mulan's body, burning with passion. You're courting death. Mulins shouted coldly, and charged towards the black-robed man with her sword in hand. The two fought together. For a moment, Mulins had the upper hand. They exchanged more than a dozen moves in an instant, and the black-robed man was completely at a disadvantage. Although their cultivation was similar, Mulins's battle prowess was obviously above his. The more they fought, the more shocked the black-robed man was. Sixth brother, you've seen enough. Why aren't you making a move? End the battle quickly, or else there will be changes. The black-robed man suddenly shouted towards the sky. Hee. A second black-robed man appeared behind a cloud in the sky. This black-robed man's aura was even more shocking, reaching the 8th level of the spiritual sea tier. Mu Tian and the others' expressions changed drastically. The other party actually had so many experts. This girl is mine. The black-robed man that appeared behind glanced at Mulins with fiery eyes and said coldly, Fine, she's yours then. The black-robed man in front gritted his teeth. Xiao. The second black-robed man turned into a streak of black light and charged towards Mulins. Chapter 1357. Lan. Mu Tian shouted worriedly. However, Mulins and the two black-robed men had higher cultivation than him, and he could not interfere. Mu Tian, you should worry about yourself. Dao Heng sneered and charged towards Mu Tian. There was no suspense in today's battle. As long as the two black-robed men took down Mulins, it would be easy for them to deal with the rest. As the battle continued, the situation became more and more unfavorable for Tianxian City. Mulins slowly fell into a disadvantageous position. Hee, this chick is really beautiful. I have lived for so many years, but I have never seen such an attractive lady. The second black-robed man sneered and attacked Mulins like a storm. Mulins was panting and sweating profusely. She could not hold on any longer. Boom! At this moment, there was a terrifying aura in the sky. This aura was like the ruler of the universe. It was vast and unfathomable like the deep sea. A terrifying pressure instantly enveloped the entire Tianxian city. Ah, ah, ah. Everyone from the Black Knife region, including Dao Heng and the two black-robed men, screamed as if they had been hit by a few hundred mountains. Blood spurted out of their mouths. However, the strange thing was that Mu Tian, Mulans, and the rest of the people from Tianxian City were fine. That is, everyone looked towards the sky and realized that there was a blurry figure in the sky far away. He was covered by a halo and looked like a god in the sky. It's him. Mulans's face changed, and a complicated look flashed across her eyes. She then bit her lips and flew down, disappearing from Tianxian City. Who is that? He is so powerful. He is too powerful. Is he a god? The martial artists in Tianxian City looked towards the sky and said in a daze. That aura made them look up and worship him. However, that aura appeared for a very short time. As soon as it appeared, it immediately retracted and disappeared. Then the figure in the sky stepped down from the sky. Lu Ming, it's you? Mu Tian exclaimed when he saw the figure. That's right. The figure that suddenly appeared was Lu Ming. Earlier, when he had just arrived in Tianxian City, he had discovered that there was a great battle going on in Tianxian City. In a fit of rage, he had unleashed his aura, injuring the black-robed man and the people from the Black Blade region. And this was him showing mercy. Otherwise, with the cultivation of the black-robed man and the others, Lu Ming's aura would have already turned them into ashes. Not even a speck of them would have remained. Lu Ming, it's really you. Mu Zheng flew over when he saw Lu Ming. What? Lu Ming, it's him. Lu Ming is back. Heavens, that terrifying aura was actually emitted by Lu Ming. What realm has Lu Ming reached? The other people in Tianxian City exclaimed in disbelief when they saw Lu Ming. They found it hard to believe that the godlike aura just now was emitted by Lu Ming. Senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists at Mu Zheng and Mu Tian. Lu Ming, why did you suddenly come back? Mu Zheng was overjoyed when he saw Lu Ming. The Dragon League is currently taking over the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's territory and forces. I happen to be in Nine Dragons City, so I came back to take a look. Lu Ming said. Oh, what? The Dragon League? Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the others nodded. Suddenly, they thought of something and exclaimed. Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the others looked at Lu Ming in shock. Lu Ming, I heard that there was a great battle in the Middle Continent's holy city. The one who dominated the battle is called Lu Ming. Also, the Dragon League has taken over the world. I heard that the leader of the Dragon League is called Lu Ming. Is that you? Mu Tian stuttered when he spoke. Mu Zheng, and the others also stared at Lu Ming. Cough cough, that's me. Lu Ming coughed dryly and said. Hiss hiss hiss, Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the others sucked in a breath of cold air and froze on the spot. Although they had guessed it before, they still found it hard to believe after it was confirmed. It felt like they were dreaming. The leader of the Dragon League, the overlord of the Divine Wilderness continent, was actually Lu Ming. The Lu Ming who had walked out of the Tianxian region. It was too shocking. They were stunned for a while before they reacted. Then they were overjoyed. It must be Lu Ming. They were sure of it. The aura that Lu Ming had exuded was too shocking. He was like a god, the ruler of the world. Compared to him, they were like ants. However, there was one person who had a complicated look in his eyes. He was filled with anxiety. It was Mui. In the past, he had targeted Lu Ming. Now, if Lu Ming wanted to settle the score with him, he did not dare to think further. Seniors, let's take a look at these people first. Lu Ming said. With a suction force, the two black-robed men and Dao Heng were sucked over by Lu Ming. Spare my life, Lu Ming. No, Alliance leader Lu. Spare my life. Dao Heng screamed in horror. As for the two black-robed men, they were trembling as they begged for mercy. They had heard the conversation between Lu Ming and the others, and were almost scared to death. This young man who had suddenly appeared was the leader of the newly established Dragon League. Why would such a big shot suddenly come to the small Tianxian city? It seemed like he was on good terms with Mu Tian and the others. Dao Heng and the others thought that they were dreaming. It was a terrifying nightmare. Tell me, who ordered you to do this? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he shouted. Dao Heng and the others were so scared that they trembled. Obviously, there was someone behind the two black-robed men. It's the Blood Mountain sect. We are the disciples of the Blood Mountain sect. The Blood Mountain sect wants to take advantage of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace's destruction to secretly plunder a batch of treasures to strengthen themselves. The black-robed man who had appeared first shouted. He did not dare to hide anything from Wuxia. So it's the Blood Mountain sect. Wuxia's face changed. The Blood Mountain sect was the strongest force in the surrounding dozens of regions. Legend had it that they had a spiritual god expert. In the past, they had always sided with the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace, and were a subsidiary sect of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. Now that the news of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace's destruction had spread, the Blood Mountain sect could no longer sit still. They wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to reap some benefits. The Blood Mountain sect doesn't need to exist anymore. A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. Then he struck out with his palm. Boom! Under Lu Ming's palm, a huge crack appeared in the space, revealing a pitch-black void passageway. Boom! The void passageway shook. Everyone could see that the other side of the void passageway had also cracked open. An extremely majestic giant mountain appeared. On the giant mountain, there was a bloody mist lingering. The Blood Mountain sect. This was the Blood Mountain sect. Ha! Lu Ming shouted. He flipped his hand and pressed down. Everyone watched in horror as a huge palm formed in the sky above the Blood Mountain sect. It covered the sky and the sun as it pressed down on the Blood Mountain sect. Chapter 1358. Mu Tian, Mu Zheng Mu Yi, and the others had never seen such an unbelievable scene. They stood there dumbfounded, their eyes wide open. As for Dao Heng and the two black-robed men, their bodies were like sieves, trembling non-stop. This was like a myth in their eyes. In actuality, this kind of method was nothing to a ruler. An ordinary emperor could cross hundreds of millions of miles to kill an enemy. However, the further the distance, the weaker the power. If an ordinary ruler were to cross the void to kill an enemy, even a supreme being would not be able to deal with them. Therefore, ordinary rulers would not do this when they encountered a powerful enemy. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, it was easy for him to cross hundreds of millions of miles to kill a sect with only a spiritual god. However, Lu Ming did not kill the Blood Mountain sect martial artists with low cultivation levels. He only killed martial artists whose cultivation levels were above the Spirit Sea realm. Thousands of experts were turned into ashes by Lu Ming's palm, including the spiritual god leading the group. Whoosh! Suddenly, a bloody light shot up into the sky from the Blood Mountain sect and fled into the distance. Blood Emperor of Cold Blood Hall, you're the one behind this. Lu Ming's gaze turned cold and he shouted coldly. Lu Ming recognized the bloody light from the Blood Mountain sect at a glance. It was the Blood Emperor of Cold Blood Hall. Back then, when Cold Blood Hall attacked Floating Mountain, he led his men to reinforce Floating Mountain and besieged Cold Blood Hall. Blood Emperor of Cold Blood Hall was severely injured by Mo Yi and Martial Emperor Uxian, and only Spirit God managed to escape. During this period of time, the Blood Emperor had not appeared. Lu Ming thought that the Blood Emperor's spirit god had dissipated and his body and spirit had been destroyed. Unexpectedly, the Blood Emperor's spirit god had taken over a body in a remote place like the Eastern Wilderness. Until now, his cultivation had recovered to the 7th level of the spirit god. He was the one who controlled the Blood Mountain sect to collect treasures to help him recover. Where do you think you're going? Lu Ming's glabella shone. His second body took a step forward and rushed into the void passageway. At the same time, he waved his hand, and a phoenix feather flying sword flew out. In an instant, it appeared on the other side of the void passageway and slashed at the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor let out an unwilling scream as he was sliced in half by the phoenix feather flying sword and died on the spot. Whoosh! The second body kept the phoenix feather flying sword and returned to Lu Ming's forehead through the void tunnel. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the spatial crack disappeared. However, Mu Tian and the others were still unable to recover from their shock. They were all stunned. The series of events just now was really too shocking. Was this the method of a pinnacle expert of the divine wilderness continent? Is this the method of a ruler? It was like a legend. Some people even felt chills run down their spines. Such methods were truly unimaginable. No wonder everyone was so respectful towards the emperor, not daring to show the slightest bit of disrespect. Because if you offended the emperor would be able to kill you from 100 million miles away. After a long while, Mu Tian and the others regained their senses. When they looked at Lu Ming, their eyes were filled with awe. This was awe towards power. Alliance leader, we've already said, can you spare my life? A black-robed man said with a trembling voice. Did I promise to spare your lives? Lu Ming said indifferently. With a wave of his hand, Dao Heng, the two black-robed men, and the experts who came to attack Tianxian City, turned into ashes in an instant. It seems like we have to take down these small sects as soon as possible. Lu Ming said in a low voice. Now that the overlord forces have been destroyed, the small forces below them would definitely be in chaos and start killing each other. Only by taking them down as soon as possible and tidying them up would they be able to avoid unnecessary killing. By the way, where's Senior Mulins? Lu Ming asked. Lan, Mu Tian Mu Zheng, and the others glanced around and didn't see Mulins. For a moment, they didn't know what to say. Senior Mulins isn't here? Then forget it. After pondering for a moment, Lu Ming said with a smile. Mu Tian and the others sighed in their hearts. Seniors, Lu Ming has something to do and needs to rush to Nine Dragons City. If you want to leave Tianxian region and move to the central continent in the future, just send someone to inform me. Lu Ming said. We've lived in Tianxian region for our whole lives and are used to it. Alliance leader Lu, we appreciate your kindness. Mu Tian said. Unknowingly, he had also changed the way he addressed Lu Ming. Lu Ming naturally noticed it too. He sighed in his heart and didn't say anything. He was no longer the young Lu Ming from back then. He was now the alliance leader of the Dragon Alliance and the overlord of the world. Mu Tian and the others' attitude towards him had changed, and they respected him. This was something that couldn't be helped. After that, Lu Ming bade farewell to Mu Tian and the others, and headed to Nine Dragons City. After Lu Ming left, a figure flew out from a pavilion in Tianxian City. It was Mulins. Lan why didn't you come out to meet us just now? Mu Tian asked. Mulan looked in the direction that Lu Ming had left in. There was longing in her eyes, but more than that, there was a complicated expression. My talent is too far away from Lu Ming's. As time passes, the gap between us will only widen. He and I are people from two different worlds after all. Mulan sighed. Mu Tian Mu Zheng and the others also sighed. Even if I come out and follow him, what's the use? We can't grow old together. Mulins continued. Yes, her current cultivation was only at the Spirit Sea realm. She was very clear about her talent. In this lifetime, the Spirit Embryo realm was her limit. She had almost no hope of reaching the Spirit God realm. However, the Spirit Embryo realm only had a lifespan of 3,000 years. However, Lu Ming had a long lifespan. Emperors could live for 10 to 20,000 years. If Lu Ming's cultivation improved, wouldn't his lifespan be even longer? Even if she and Lu Ming were to be together, they wouldn't be able to spend the rest of their lives together. Moreover, the person in Lu Ming's heart isn't me. In the end, Mulan sighed and turned to return to Tianxian City. Back then, Mulan's entered a hidden sect to cultivate. She hoped to catch up to Lu Ming. However, in the end, she realized that the gap between her and Lu Ming was getting wider and wider. So much so that she couldn't catch up anymore. In the end, all her feelings could only turn into a long sigh. Sigh. Mulan's wasn't the only one who sighed. Millions of miles away from Tianxian City, Lu Ming stood in the sky and sighed. He naturally knew that Mulan's was in Tianxian City. However, how could he not guess Mulan's thoughts? In that situation, he could only play dumb. Otherwise, even if he met Mulan's, what could he do? How could he get along with her? Lu Ming could only suppress the ignorant feelings of friendship that he had when he was a teenager in his heart. Lu Ming took a step forward and the space cracked. He disappeared into the space tunnel. After Lu Ming returned to Nine Dragons City, He sped up the integration of the small factions and sections. Wherever the Dragon Alliance passed, those small factions and sects naturally surrendered and joined the Dragon Alliance. Even if there were some obstacles, they were suppressed by lightning. The Dragon Alliance officially infiltrated every corner of the Divine Wilderness continent and ruled the world. Of course, Lu Ming didn't know that a crisis was approaching Lu Ming. Chapter 1359. Lu Ming was teaching his two unnamed disciples, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro, in a courtyard of the 100-Beast tribe in the northern plains. After Lu Ming rose to power, he had plenty of resources. He had all kinds of profound crystals, spirit pills, and miraculous medicines. Therefore, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro's cultivation improved very quickly. They had both broken through to the spiritual sea realm. Xiaoshan, although your improvement in the concept of earth using profound crystals is fast, it's still far from enough. You have to comprehend it more in the future. It will be of great help to your cultivation in the future. Do you understand? Lu Ming gave Zhuang Xiaoshan some pointers. Master, I understand. Zhuang Xiaoshan quickly nodded. The two siblings looked at Lu Ming with admiration. Although the two of them were only Lu Ming's unnamed disciples, Lu Ming didn't have any true disciples. He only had two unnamed disciples. Therefore, their status in the Dragon Alliance was very special. Many strong people, even emperors, would be polite to them when they saw them. They wouldn't have dared to imagine this in the past. However, it was really happening in front of them now. They understood that all of this was because of Lu Ming. If it wasn't for Lu Ming, they would be nothing. Even spirit embryo realm martial artists would see them as ants, let alone emperors. But now they only needed to say a word and countless spirit embryo realm, and even spirit god realm martial artists would work for them. Even a ruler would make a move for them. All of this was because of Lu Ming. They also understood that they were not very talented. In the Divine Wilderness continent, there were countless people who were more talented than them. They were fortunate enough to become Lu Ming's unnamed disciples. It was a blessing that they had accumulated over several lifetimes. Therefore, they were exceptionally hard-working in their cultivation. Xiaoshan, I'll use the concept of earth. Comprehend it carefully. Lu Ming's voice interrupted Zhuang Xiaoshan's complicated thoughts. Zhuang Xiaoshan quickly focused. Boom! Lu Ming released the aura of the concept of earth. The heavy concept of earth enveloped Zhuang Xiaoshan. Zhuang Xiaoshan immediately closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged to comprehend it quietly. Xiaoro, come over here and feel the concept of water. Lu Ming said to Zhuang Xiaoro. Yes, master. Zhuang Xiaoro answered obediently. She blinked her big eyes and looked at Lu Ming with adoration. Comparatively speaking, Zhuang Xiaoro was much more talented than Zhuang Xiaoshan. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the concept of water spread out. Like a river, it enveloped Zhuang Xiaoro. Zhuang Xiaoro also quickly sat down cross-legged and began to carefully comprehend. Along the way, Lu Ming only had time to teach these two disciples because he was relatively free during this period of time. At that time, my cultivation speed and combat strength would greatly increase. I would definitely be valued by the family. It's all Lu Ming's fault, it's all his fault. Di kept roaring, and his emotions were extremely agitated. After a while, Di calmed down a little. The family should have received the news that I sent to them. The experts in the family should be here soon. Lu Ming, I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Di's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Northern plains of the Divine Wilderness continent. 3 hours later, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro woke up from their comprehension. Alright, go back and comprehend well. After a while, I will test you and check the results of your cultivation. Lu Ming instructed. Yes, master, we will take our leave. Zhuang Xiaoro and Zhuang Xiaoshan bowed and left. Let's go to the Imperial Dragon City. Lu Ming stood up and took a step forward. His figure disappeared. Not long after, Lu Ming arrived at the Imperial Dragon City. The Imperial Dragon City was more than half completed. The construction of the Imperial Dragon City involved martial arts experts and inscription path experts. They were selected from various major forces. And even with the assistance of emperors, it still took such a long time. it could be seen how vast and majestic the construction of the Imperial Dragon City was. Lu Ming stood in the sky above the Imperial Dragon City. He couldn't see the end of it at all. At each of the 4 gates of the Imperial Dragon City, there was a 10,000-foot-tall statue. The owner of the statue was Lu Ming. Entering from the south gate, there was a passage called the Divine Dragon Path. It led to a square paved with white jade. This square was surrounded by countless seats, which were prepared to receive distinguished guests. The entire Imperial Dragon City was built on the original Longhua Mountain. Longhua Mountain originally had a huge Dao Eye. It was much faster to cultivate and comprehend the concept of heaven and earth here. Later, several emperors moved a few Dao Eyes from other places with great magical powers, making the concept of the Imperial Dragon City clearer. Moreover, the emperors worked together to move a few spiritual eyes. In addition, the emperors who cultivated the path of inscription had inscribed the energy gathering formation here. The spiritual energy here was so dense that it almost couldn't be dispersed. Chapter 1360. Lu Ming glanced at it and was very satisfied. Then he looked to the east. There was a place that he should go, the 9 Dragons Relic. During this time, Lu Ming had refined the drop of 9 Dragons blood essence that he had obtained from De. He had merged it with the 9 Dragons bloodline and obtained more memories of the 9 dragons. It was time to go to the 9 Dragons Relic. Lu Ming took a step forward, and the space automatically split open. Then he disappeared without a trace. The 9 Dragons Relic was at the border of the eastern wilderness and the central continent, in the chaotic area. Lu Ming's figure silently appeared in the chaotic area and headed toward the 9 Dragons Relic. As Lu Ming flew, the area ahead became more and more desolate. There was not a single blade of grass on the vast mountain. It was dead silent, as if all the vitality had been devoured by something. Further ahead, the desolate mountain turned into a desert. It was even more dead silent. When Lu Ming arrived at the center of the desert, he saw a cave. It was an unfathomably deep cave. It was dark and led to the depths of the earth. There was a dark yellow stone tablet at the side of the cave. There was a line of words written on the stone tablet. Emperors and above who enter will die. The words were filled with killing intent. It was as if there was a terrifying killing intent coming from it, making one's body turn cold. As expected, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. There had always been a legend that emperors and above could not enter the 9 Dragons Relic. If one entered, they would die. That was why Martial Emperor De did not dare to enter, but let Supremacy Zhuyang enter. Lu Ming's glabella shone. His second body appeared and stood at the side. His second body had already broken through to the Emperor realm and could not enter. Whoosh! Lu Ming's main body did not hesitate and rushed into the dark cave. As soon as he entered, a terrifying force came from the cave, causing Lu Ming's body to sink. It was as if he was carrying tens of thousands of mountains. His body fell straight down. Moreover, he fell faster and faster. Stop! Lu Ming's true essence burst out to resist the force. Although it had some effect, it was not very good. It only slowed down the speed of his fall. It wasn't until Lu Ming used the concept of primal chaos that he was able to resist that power and freely control his body. Lu Ming controlled himself to descend at an even speed. The cave was unfathomably deep. Lu Ming felt that he had descended a few hundred li, but he was still descending. Moreover, at the edge of the cave, Lu Ming felt a terrifying killing intent more than once. It was as if there was a wave of energy that swept over his body and then retracted. Lu Ming guessed that if his cultivation exceeded that of a ruler, he might suffer a terrifying attack. It kept falling. Lu Ming estimated that it had fallen for about 500 kilometers before finally reaching the bottom. Sweeping his gaze around, he saw a thick layer of bones at the bottom of the cave. Some of the skeletons were sparkling and translucent, as if they were polished from fine jade. Some of the skeletons were dazzling with golden light, as if they were made of gold. One could imagine that the owner of those skeletons must have been an incomparably powerful individual. They might even have been an emperor. Yet in the end they were buried here. The dangers of the 9 Dragons Relic could be imagined. Lu Ming landed on the ground of the cave, but he still felt a strong pressure, which greatly interfered with his movements. His movements became slow, and it became difficult for him to fly. In front of the cave, there was a straight cave that was still pitch black. Lu Ming circulated his vital essence and walked 100 meters in a step. He passed by the skeletons and walked toward the cave in front of him. Roar! Nonetheless, not long after, a dragon's roar was heard. A blood dragon that seemed to be formed by blood mist pounced toward Lu Ming. A true dragon. Lu Ming's eyes moved. This blood dragon had 5 dragon claws on its abdomen. It was a 5-clawed true dragon. Swoosh! The 5-clawed blood dragon pounced toward Lu Ming with astonishing might. A supreme venerable. This 5-clawed blood dragon had the combat strength of a supreme venerable. Boom! Lu Ming punched the blood dragon's claws. The powerful force shattered the blood dragon's claws. Following that, the fist force crushed the blood dragon's body and crushed it. Lu Ming continued to move forward. Roar! Roar! After walking for about 1,000 meters, another dragon's roar was heard. This time there were 2 roars. 2 5-clawed blood dragons appeared and charged toward Lu Ming. They were also at the supreme venerable level. Of course, they were easily defeated by Lu Ming. Lu Ming continued to move forward, but soon, 3 more blood dragons appeared. As he continued to move forward, more and more blood dragons appeared. In the end, 9 5-clawed blood dragons appeared together. It was equivalent to 9 supreme venerables besieging Lu Ming. With Lu Ming's combat strength, it was naturally not difficult for him to defeat them one by one. However, after passing through the siege of the 9 blood dragons, Lu Ming continued to move forward and encountered another attack. This time, only 3 blood dragons appeared. However, the difference was that these 3 blood dragons all had 6 dragon claws on their abdomens. The 6-clawed blood dragon's combat strength was higher than that of the 5-clawed blood dragon. However, they were still no match for Lu Ming. As Lu Ming made his way through, the number of 6-clawed blood dragons that appeared became more and more. When Lu Ming made his way through the siege of 9 6-clawed blood dragons, 7 more blood dragons with dragon claws appeared. The difficulty was getting higher and higher. When Lu Ming made his way through 9 7-clawed blood dragons, Lu Ming came to an underground stone room. Lu Ming found that there were a few boxes in the stone room, but the boxes had been opened, and there was nothing inside. This is the place where Senior Zhuyang came back then, Lu Ming whispered. He had previously asked Xia Zhuyang about the 9 dragons' relics, and Xia Zhuyang had told him in detail. Back then, Xia Zhuyang had made his way through 9 7-clawed blood dragons, and arrived at this stone room. The 2 drops of 9 dragons' blood essence, the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps secret manual, and the foundation of the true battle dragon tactics were all obtained from here. They were placed in these boxes back then. Back then, Supreme Zhuyang had reached his limit. If he continued, he would have to face 8-clawed blood dragons, whose combat strength was even more astonishing. Xia Zhuyang was no match for them. Continue. Lu Ming strode forward and walked toward the cave in front of the stone room. Sure enough, each of the blood dragons that appeared in front of him had 8 dragon claws, and their combat strength was astonishing. The combat strength of a single blood dragon was equivalent to a human supreme who had awakened a level 9 divine bloodline. It was extremely powerful. However, it still couldn't stop Lu Ming's footsteps. Lu Ming made his way through all the blood dragons. After defeating 9 8-clawed blood dragons, there was a shocking dragon roar, and a huge 9 dragons appeared in front of Lu Ming. Yes, it was 9 dragons with 9 dragon claws. Although its aura was that of a supreme, it gave Lu Ming an extremely dangerous feeling. Roar! The 9 dragons' bloodline appeared above Lu Ming's head, and Lu Ming turned into 9 dragons. Roar! Roar! The 2 9 dragons charged at each other. The 9 dragons that appeared here were too strong. Ordinary martial monarchs wouldn't be a match for them. They were at least equivalent to a level 2 martial monarch. Lu Ming wasn't a match for them at first. He only started to suppress them when he used the chaotic will. 1 dragon is already so strong. If there are a few more, or even 9 of them, how can I fight them? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.